You're listening to Review and Preview on Facebook Live.
Some music. Time.
What's going on, everybody? Good evening and welcome to Review and Preview. My name is Tom Scavetta, joined alongside Johnny Montalbano and Fonz DeFalco. Gentlemen, welcome to the 11-year anniversary show of Review and Preview. Johnny, I'll start with you. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Tom. Hey, Fonz. I'm doing well. My voice is not. Allergy season has been in full force down here already in about a week. But other than that, I am doing great. I'm very, very happy. Let me first say congratulations to you, Tom, to Fonz, to everybody here at Review and Preview. It's crazy to think, and I've been reflecting on this today. 11 years ago, we started this little show of ours. It was actually a 3-person crew up there at the WCWP studios at LIU Post. It was 1 hour on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. And now it is 11 years later, branched off in many different ways and many great ways. So it's great to be back on and celebrate and also do what we do best, review the week that was, preview the week that will be in the world of sports.
Couldn't have said any better, Johnny. Tom, thank you for having me. And Johnny, it's nice to see you again. 11 years, guys. This is incredible. I know I joined like the halfway point, but to see like what's been built throughout all these years, like you said, from a 3-person show in a small studio to now a network of multiple shows, it's really incredible. And I'm really glad to be a part of it. Tom, shout out to Tom for letting me join here a few years ago now. Now I think about it, because it's a few years now, man. Time flies. Time flies when you're having fun, and I'm looking forward to talking a lot of sports, like you said, previewing and reviewing what happened this past weekend.
I know there's other people that deserve the credit, but Johnny started it all, as I like to say. And folks, if you want to follow us throughout the night, there's our social media below. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, like and subscribe to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel as well at Review and Preview Sports. I'll leave that up there for just a moment. Now, Johnny, let's talk about your history of the show and how it all started for you, how it was formed, to give people a little bit of a background who may not know how Review and Preview was initially formed.
Sure. So back in August of 2011, I was looking to, get my career going in the TV radio industry. And I do have to say a big thank you to this goes out to my uncle, who I'm going to see next month when I have to go up to New York for a wedding. But he knew Dan Cox, the program director at WCWP. By the way, shout out to Dan and thank you. He knew Dan, and so he knew that I wanted to get started in this. So I went over there. There were 2 other guys, Jason Geiser, Joe Voce, who I started the show with. So we all were looking into getting to a show started together. And then the next step is, all right, so what do we want the name of the show to be? Originally, Review and Preview was an idea that I threw out there as possibly a segment of a show. And then the guys also with me came to a senses like, why don't we just name the show that? We're going to be on only once a week. Let's go ahead and name the show that, and let's take care of that. And that's where one of my sayings of the show, where we review the week that was and preview the week that will be. And that's where it started. So it was the 3 of us that started 11 years ago today. And I have to say, those were my first 2 co-hosts. And I have to say, they were great. We had some great moments on the air. And off the air, they were very, very nice guys. So I have to say it was great. And, things changed. They moved on. I got new guys to come in. I had like Charlie Moeller. I had the late, great Brian Marbach, who we miss definitely during the show. He was on our 10-year show last year. So he came along, gave us some other great moments. I had Ross Perlow Hansen there. I had Mark Grossman. I mean, I had a bunch of guys, but I have to tell you, the show was always there. And I think the biggest surprise out of all this, and even still to this day, 7+ years later, was when I knew I was moving down here to South Carolina. And Tom, you came aboard and you took over the show. And I have to tell you, it's crazy to think, and I want to say it this way, not many great things came out of COVID, but it did allow you guys to, take this show and branch into so many different categories, do the show from home. And also now basically not only is it a show, but it's now its own channel, which is just absolutely awesome. So a lot of memories starting the show and getting to where it is now. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think before I get to Fonz here, I just want to thank Brian again, who, we're coming up on his 1-year death anniversary, sadly. Brian was the host between Johnny and I. So there was a little overlap there, and I got to work with Brian on the show for about 2 years. And, I kind of viewed him as a father figure while I was dorming away at Post. I needed somebody to lean on, and he invited me on a sports talk show that helped me jumpstart my career as well, in addition to LIU Post broadcasts. And, we miss you, Brian, and I know next week we'll be doing a little something special for Brian. But, Johnny, it's interesting because there was a picture of you specifically that you posted today on your Facebook. And what were you doing in this picture? Explain this.
Given the fire takes, I hope.
Oh, well,
That.
It's funny. It could have been one of my many rants at the New York Knicks back at that time, because they had one good year in the time that I had there. And going back to Brian there for just a second, that was one thing I always had in common with Brian is our teams that we rooted for, whether it was the Giants or the Knicks, and we did a lot of ranting on the show, that's for sure. So that actually, though, is not from the Knicks. That is actually from how I started the show every week. And most weeks, I actually would start the show standing up just to get the energy flowing. And my intro to the show, and again, folks, you're going to have to bear with me because of my voice, but it used to always go like, "It's showtime, folks." So that was just me introing one of the shows back in May of 2014. And, we still keep that intro going on my show now. So, so that was the backstory behind that photo. It's like, today's the 11-year anniversary. I know I'm going to be on. So let's go back in the archives and find a photo and use it as my profile picture on social media.
Awesome. And I know you really helped jumpstart this, as you mentioned. Fonz, what about you? I mean, how did you get started? I know we both know.
I think we have an idea.
And then talk about maybe one of your favorite moments.
Oh, so for those that don't know, I mean, I went to St. Bonaventure. I wasn't associated with LIU Post. My sister went there. Shout out to Sophia. I think it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Tom, you might have to tell me, jog the memory with that. I graduated in 2017. I was looking for work in the sports field. And, you guys know how it is. It's very competitive. Takes a long shot to even make it, even get the first yes. And I was looking for something to do. And my buddy Albert, who is friends with Tom, also in the same fraternity, talked to Tom and said, "Hey, my buddy Fonz, likes to talk sports, wants to get into this industry." And me and Tom have talked a little bit here and there. And then Tom reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, do you want to come to a show Friday?" It was like, you guys, what was it, 8:00, I believe, 8:00.
It was late, yeah.
At the Post studio, and I'm like, why not? Might as well get started somewhere and give it a shot, because I've seen their shows before. I'm like, oh, that'd be something I definitely want to do. And it was me, Kyle Russo, James, and Tom also, and I got hooked right away. I think we felt the chemistry between the four of us, right away. I know you three always had the chemistry, and I was a little nervous, being like, I don't know if I would fit in right away with it, but I felt like it was a good show from the start, something a little bit different. And I joined literally every week after that since. So that's how it was. Then once the pandemic happened and everything was shut down, we didn't know what to do as far as the show. And then JDF Sports, or we do the shows like this. Like, why don't we give this a shot? All meet up on here on StreamYard or whatever and do the show remotely from home. And we all weren't sure at first. We know how it would work. And from there on, we haven't even stepped back in that studio since, even with everything opening back up. And then from there on, we expanded to other shows like the 3&D, and then we had North Pole for a little bit, and then Four Corners with pro wrestling, and that's what it was. I think it was like I kind of made the idea. I didn't think it would become this. I wasn't sure. I think it would take some time, but yeah, I kind of started in the middle of it, and I was the outsider, as they would say. No Post alum, but again, out the time for letting me join on here, and ever since that first week, I was hooked ever since.
Well, you're not an outsider anymore, Fonz, and I couldn't thank you enough for starting the virtual platform, because without you, none of this is possible right now. No StreamYard, no OBS, no Facebook Live, no nothing. We did Facebook Live in the studio beforehand, but we never really set up the stream like this.
We did it from an iPad all the way at the top corner to now all of us like our laptops, cameras, microphones.
Yeah. So back in 2017, before I officially became the host, I used to fill in for Brian when he couldn't commute in from the Hamptons, and we had a blackout on the show just to show you what the camera angle looked like. This is what it looked like in the studio.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
On Facebook Live. This was 5 years ago. Just goes to show how time flies. And that was our engineer, Mike Dawes, back
Mike
in
Dawes,
the day.
Wow. I remember that. Yes.
That's a name. Kind of reminded me of Spencer Hawes a little bit. But anyway, another person I got to meet minutes before going live on Review and Preview, professional wrestler, who was filming a project, I think, with Alex McDonald. I think, Johnny, you might remember that name. Justin Credible. I got to meet him.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
That is awesome.
That was right before we went live. Again, also 5 years ago. So, I mean, just a breathtaking moment. We've had a lot of fun moments here on Review and Preview. And, Johnny, I think I forgot to ask you one moment that stood out to you specifically.
Oof. Well, I have two, and they go back to because they involved players in New York sports that you never would think you would get into a heavy debate about.
Yeah.
But that's what happened on our show. I believe it was in the fall of 2010. I don't know if you guys remember, but the day that the Mets traded Angel Pagan to the San Francisco Giants, and they got Andres Torres and Ramon Ramirez, a reliever, back. I got into a heavy debate with my two co-hosts at the time, Jason Geiser and Joe Voce, over that trade, and I was the one that loved that trade at the time for the Mets. Now, obviously, that trade did not work out, but they traded Pagan over to the Giants, and those two guys loved Pagan, and I was trying to make the point that it wasn't even about the two outfielders. It was about the fact that the trade I thought was great at the time because Ramon Ramirez had one of the best ERAs of any reliever in baseball in that past year. But those two guys could not get over the fact that the Mets traded Pagan. And if you remember Pagan when he was a Met, I mean, he had his moments, but he was no dynamite player on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would have said that on almost any contending team, he would have been at best a fourth outfielder. So that was one moment. Another moment came after Super Bowl 46 with my New York Football Giants, or Thomas should say New York Football Giants. After they won the Super Bowl and they did not re-sign Mario Manningham, my two co-hosts, Jason and Joe, who were both Jet fans, so I kind of really wonder at the time if it was a little Jet bias in all of this, but the Giants did not re-sign Manningham. If I can remember correctly, Tom, I believe he went to the San Francisco 49ers. Right? So the two guys came on and or Jason, I remember saying to me that the Giants were a classless organization because they did not re-sign Mario Manningham. And I'm like, wait a second. Now, first of all, Manningham was, if you remember that year as the Giants, he was basically their third or fourth string wide receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he made that one of the most unbelievable catches in Super Bowl history, but to tell me that the Giants were a classless organization for not re-signing Mario Manningham was absolutely ridiculous. So I posed the thing at the time. I said, and of course, this came after you want to talk about classless move. This is the same Jets organization that had Braylon Edwards and had a chance to suspend him or fine him for his off-season drunk driving stuff, and they didn't do anything about that. So just remember that. But also, did you mean to tell me that then the Yankees were classless because they did not re-sign Hideki Matsui after the 2009 World Series? You know what it's called? It's called a business. Yeah. And sometimes the business is tough. But you know what? Manningham got paid first-string receiver money for what he was really a third string receiver. And that's just the reality. He was a third string wide receiver on the Giants. And and so yeah, it sucked to see him let go, but that's what it's called? It's called business. It's not personal, it's business. But to tell me the Giants are classes for not re-signing Mario Manningham after the Super Bowl is just utterly absurd. So we got into two major debates, but that's the fun I had with those two guys. We got into a lot of heavy debates, but it was a lot of fun. We agreed on a lot of stuff. We were very passionate about it. We disagreed on a lot of stuff, but that's what made the show great and still is making it go great today.
Absolutely. Let's get through a few comments here before we move into the NFL games of week 1, which will be our next discussion. Garth Michael Patrick saying, what is up, gentlemen? Garth, new co-host of Pucking Around. That debuted last night.
Excellent
awesome.
Show.
Congratulations, Garth. Congratulations, Noah. Absolutely.
Dominic Daniele, what's up, guys? Dominic is our production assistant behind the scenes, doesn't host the show, but he helps the engine run with his hard work in production for us. Mike DeSanto, Fonz's co-host for Four Corners, says, good evening, boys. Happy to be a part of this group. Glad to help bring our brand of wrestling coverage. Fonz, you want to take that one?
Yes, of course, with Mike. So he went to Bonaventure with me. We were wrestling fans. We always talk wrestling. We were out and about. Sometimes we saw each other like house parties. We talk wrestling here and there. I wanted to start my own wrestling show. I was like, I need a co-host. And the first person that popped into my head, I was like, this is the guy I got to go for. So right there. And then we had a good show from there. And then we added Albert later on. I'm like, we need a third guy. We need someone, the middleman here to help us out, because me and Mike get into some debates back and forth too, which, by the way, this past week, we had a very good one talking stuff with AEW, because that whole thing, if you guys haven't seen that, go watch what's going on with AEW, because there's a lot of stuff going on that you would never think you'd see with the wrestling company. But yeah, shout out to Mike. He's been excellent. The brains behind Four Corners. Appreciate you, Mike.
And speaking of Albert as well, good friend of mine who's been around for a while. And Albert brings a lot of humor to the show. And he brought a lot of humor here back on our Super Bowl show in February of 2022.
No, yeah.
I guess I can go.
Bert.
Also, if we're pulling out notebooks, let me just remind the crew here that at 7:43 on October 19th, Tom said the Vikings were going to the playoffs.
That was savage. That was savage. That was perfect. That was perfect.
Yes, the soundboard.
That was perfect.
No, you got Fonz. You got to pull out the other one. You got to do the.
He's been waiting 5 months to drop that one.
You mix up. Which one you want? You want the loser game show sound?
Yeah,
wrong answer.
I picked the Vikings to make the playoffs. And hold on. You know what, Albert? In 2023, next season.
Oh, he's gonna double down.
The Vikings will be in the NFL playoffs because new head coach who is coaching in the Super Bowl today.
That's right. You have a good shot. One.
Hey, I'm just saying, I'll be honest with you, I still stand by that statement. I mean, to double down on that statement, they're winning the NFC North this year. They're winning the NFC North 100%. They had the best head coaching hire this past hiring cycle, in my opinion. But that's another guy I want to give credit to, Albert Donor. We'll get into that in just a moment. I want to pump the brakes a little bit on that. I know I'm getting fired up.
Albert keeps the receipts.
There's three other people I want to thank for getting us here to where we are today. Is Tommy the Mac McNamara, who might be joining us next week for some NFL chat. Tommy the Mac McNamara, co-host of Brian Marbach's. And then when I first joined the show, it was Brian Marbach and Tommy McNamara, both coming from way out east in Long Island. So their dedication to the show helped me become dedicated to the show, because back in 2018, 2019, it was after Brian and Tommy had both left. It was James Montefusco, Kyle Russo, Fonz, and myself. I would commute from NBC Sports in Connecticut and drive to Long Island to host the show. I would get out of work at 6 in Connecticut and get to Long Island by 8 p.m. to host that show every single week. You could ask Fonz.
Yeah.
You could ask Fonz. And my favorite part about those days, sorry, Fonz, go ahead.
I said never late, always on time, always prepared and ready to go. Really.
My favorite part about those days is the triple O: Montefusco, Russo, and DeFalco. I was the one oddball, and Montalbano, and we also have DiMartino and DeSanto. So if your last name ends in an O, you're a good fit for review and preview. And
You're automatically hired. You're automatically hired.
That's part of the hiring. No, it just so happens to be that way. But yeah, that was awesome. That was a lot of fun. And then one last thing before we get into the NFL games, James, I want to thank him so much for all the work he does behind the scenes. And James is always very bold. And one bold thing he did this past year was this.
So I'm going to take the Chiefs 31-17 and make it back to Super Bowl 56.
I have to go with Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs.
Give me a final score of 31-28 Chiefs.
Bengals aren't hitting their peak yet, but they're going to surprise a lot of people this week and surprise a lot of Chiefs fans. Take the W at Arrowhead and surprise everybody. And Joe Burrow will be in the Super Bowl. The final score, 21-17, Bengals.
Remember that.
Wow, that's right. You did that.
You nailed it. I remember. I was there.
The most outlandish takes that you think are silly, borderline dumb, but
Not silly. Not
we
silly.
were the dumb ones. He was the smart one. He's just like, yeah.
But you know what? I remember because I was on that day. He sold it well. I have to give him credit. I mean, he sold it well. I mean, he gave him a chance. He gave legitimate reasons behind it, and he was spot on.
Absolutely. We've had so many moments, but we'll talk about that later on because we've got Fonz for about another 20 minutes, and I want to talk about a few games that happened this past week, and of course, the Bills-Rams game where the Buffalo Bills dominated the defending Super Bowl champs by a final score of 31-10. And folks, before we dissect this game, if you have any comments for us throughout the show tonight, feel free to drop them in the comments section. We'd be happy to get back to you. We do have a couple more from Daniel Bakley saying, "What's up, guys? Have a good show. Happy 11 years. Mike goes the outsider, Nash or Hall."
I'll take Kevin Nash, and then Mike will be Scott Hall because Kevin Nash is a little bit tall.
And then Brian McArdle of From the Stand Sports. Comment is so long you can't see Johnny at the moment. Don't see Hank yet, so I'll drop an 11-year anniversary sports fact. On this week, 11 years ago, Novak Djokovic won his first U.S. Open, defeating defending champion Rafael Nadal. Congrats on 11 years, guys. Thank you so much, Brian. Brian McArdle from Tampa, Florida, one of the hardest working people I know. He hosts a college football show weekly with Andy Hopper and myself. It's called From the Stand Sports. We record every Friday nights. Make sure to go check us out on YouTube and Facebook at From the Stand Sports. Daniel Bakley says Akers couldn't block for shit. And Nick Morgeson, host of the Empty the Bench podcast network. He's the head honcho over there. Congrats on 11 years, guys. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Nick.
Nick.
Appreciate it. But Bills-Rams. I never thought I'd say this, but I never thought the Bills would win by 3 touchdowns in a game where Josh Allen throws 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
I was shocked. I drafted Gabe Davis for my fantasy team this year. I saw this coming from a mile away. There was a lot of attention given to Stephon Diggs, but the Rams secondary looked trash. They looked bad. And Jalen Ramsey, is he washed?
So weird to think because I had Ramsey like before the season started as like the best corner in the NFL. I really thought like one of the, if like for me, number one, but I can see I was like top 3. But yeah, Stephon Diggs torched him. And that's just like even crazy to even think about. I had the Bills winning, but I didn't think it'd be 31-10. I thought it'd be like a close game. And there's just so much was going wrong with the Rams. And think about this with the Bills defense. They don't even have Tre'Davious White yet. Wait till White comes back. And that secondary is going to be even better. And that Von Miller signing, I got to say, I gave it some crap because he was older. He got younger, it looks like, with the Bills with 2 sacks. He looks good.
He knows them.
Well, no Andrew Whitworth over there with the Rams. First half, I tell you, going to that first half tied at 10, and my thought was that from the Bills' perspective was you pretty much dominated the first half. Those 2 interceptions that Josh Allen threw were Eli Manning-like interceptions. I mean, those were not his fault. One of them was like a tipped one. One of them was his receiver couldn't hold on to the ball. So even at that point, tied at 10, you just have that feeling that once the Bills come out in the second half, which they did, and dominate, it's like this game was pretty much over. And I felt like there was something I took out of last week, guys, was, and we saw this with Matthew Stafford, and we saw this with Joe Burrow too. The fact that those two guys really didn't play in the preseason and really didn't do much in camp because of their injuries, Stafford with the elbow, Burrow with the appendectomy, I think it showed itself because Stafford looked very, very rusty. And so I think that's something to take out of this too. Sometimes it's tricky when you have quarterbacks or you have players in general that don't play in the preseason. It's one thing to play in camp and stuff, but it's not like taking a hit or playing a series out there on the field. So I really felt like, as great as the Bills were too, I think because Stafford didn't really play in the preseason or really do much in camp because of the elbow, I think it really showed itself. And the Rams also were down a couple of receivers from the Super Bowl too. But no, I think the Bills are absolutely loaded. I mean, I think you have to be fair. I think the Bills and to me, the Bills and the Chargers are the two favorites to come out of the AFC. I'd say the Chiefs as well, but to me, the Bills, they're totally loaded this year for sure.
But guys, 7 sacks, 7, forcing 3 Stafford interceptions. It's only week 1. They played like they were in midseason form.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. They were remarkable.
They had a big chip on their shoulder from last year, the way it ended. They carried over.
Yeah.
7 sacks. I mean, from Von Miller, I think it was the other guy was Jordan Phillips, the guy they brought back, former Bill also. Ed Oliver there, one I think doesn't get enough credit. Again, that whole defensive line, the front 7, secondary, like I said before, when Trey White comes back, that's going to be a complete defense, and that's going to be scary. And there's a reason why they let Cole Beasley walk, because Gabe Davis is now the clear number 2, and he looks really good along with it.
Yeah, he does. And I will say this too. Cooper Kupp, in my opinion, the only player on offense that showed up for the Rams. 13 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown. He was phenomenal. But I think I forget if Robinson left the game injured or something, but he was just a non-factor.
I don't think he was injured. I don't even think he was injured. He was on the field a lot. I saw him.
They just couldn't get him the ball.
He had 1 target, or maybe 2 targets. He had 1 catch for like 10 yards, and that was it. And he was
That's a good point.
The big signing for them. He was like their big signing for them. Like the guy to replace OBJ, or at least get like a number 1, number 2 next to Kupp. Really was not existing out there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. More comments. Daniel says Rams defense spent a lot of time on the field. That they did.
That'll do it. I don't care how good your defense is, even with them bringing in Wagner. Your defense is out there on the field. It gets exposed. I don't care how good it is.
Wagner and Donald. Deanna Karen says happy 11 years. Shout out to my girlfriend with the comment. Appreciate you and all the support.
By the way, he was saying, he just go back to his other comment for a second about the Rams, not many Rams players playing in the Rams starters playing at all in the preseason. I think that's a big deal.
They've done that for a while.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one thing to do it in camp. It's another thing to do it out there on the field, and especially against a Bills team that's loaded this year. I mean, I think that's the same reason why I think you saw the Bengals struggle as much as they did against the Steelers on Sunday.
Absolutely. Daniel also says Stafford was forcing it to Kupp and just didn't look Robinson's way. Well, yeah. I mean, again, credit to the Bills defense. Was going to move on to the Ravens Jets next up. There we go. Fonz is
I don't know. It's a
clear now.
little buggy. You know how technology works in today's age. So that's why I had to move over here. But I think we're good now. But I've been hearing all you guys were saying too. But yeah, Bills are. Whew, and then we're talking.
Oh, what?
What, they're ready to go into it?
Yeah.
I think my internet crashed a little bit too. But I'm trying to talk about it. You want me to go into it?
Absolutely.
All right,
you were there, man.
I was there last year. I saw the Jets opponents, whereas the Ravens for the home area, and I was like, you know what, I got to get tickets no matter what. And a year later, things changed in a year, but it's all good. I still went to the game, and it was home opener. What a way to start off the season! By the way, the national anthem, 9/11. It was a great. I had chills. Through that. Like the person who was singing. Everyone else was singing towards it halfway through, and I had like chills like during it. And I was a part of it. And I was glad. It was awesome to be a part of it. But they look at the game itself. 24-9. That was Lamar looked really good, man. And listen, they gotta pay this man. They got to pay this man. He's proven that they got to pay him. He looked really good in the pocket and good scrambling, as we've all known too. And what did I say, Tom? When they get that number one true receiver, it'll finally work in the Ravens offense. And Bateman already looks like that true number one. And I said that they needed to draft him last year. I was happy they drafted him. He got hurt last year, so it was a little bit iffy. But this year looks really healthy, looks really good. Did you guys see that dime Lamar threw to Bateman? I got out of my chair. All the Jets fans were like booing at me and like pointing at me saying sit down or whatever. And I just like look at the scoreboard. It was really good too. And I also will say this too. Devin Duvernay, he was a Pro Bowl last year as a return specialist, more of a kick returner, punt returner. He looked to be the number 2 this year. 2 touchdowns today. Duvernay, yeah, he was looking really good next day. And I think we all look at Bateman. He's going to be the number 1 guy, but I think everyone should keep an eye on Duvernay. If Bateman's, having some struggles here, or if he's locked down by the number 1 corner, Duvernay's going to get a lot of touches. I think he's going to move out of the kick return spot too if he keeps proving himself. But keep an eye on Devin Duvernay. I'm a big fan of him as well. They look really good. The defense looked good too. The big sign they had, Marcus Williams, led the team in tackles with 12, had a nice pick. Can't complain. Overall, great day to be a Ravens fan. It was great to go to that. And I'm also going to go to the Ravens when they play the Giants too, Tom. Just going to throw that out there. I'm also going to go. Anytime the Ravens play, I got to go. I got to go to that game too.
Super Bowl 35.
Yeah. 34-7.
Thanks.
So.
Now, no Dobbins either.
Yeah, no Dobbins. I kind of
He'll be back. Just give him a second.
Good rate of play at number 2, but I wasn't too sure about was Kenyon Drake. Kenyon Drake was starting. I was just saying what I know again, his internet's really crappy, but I was saying Dobbins, I expected him not to play. And then, the rushing attack, I'm a little bit was concerned a little bit because, no Dobbins and then Gus Edwards is still out. But Kenyon Drake, he looked decent. Again, he signed into the team like 3-4 days ago, like maybe a week. I have no idea. He was very new to the offense. So I wasn't expecting him to go for 100 yards, 3 touchdowns or whatever too. But, looks solid. When Dobbins comes back, he's going to look really good. Then we got guys like Mike Davis too. And then, of course, you got to rely on Lamar too with the legs because he can do that as well. But, the running game could be a little bit of a concern. But, once Dobbins is back and Gus is back, it'll be all right. I can't blame Drake for it because he literally just signed with the team a few days ago.
Totally. Yep. For sure. I mean, I'll take the Jet angle here for a second because, and I'm sure we're going to get to this. I don't get for the life of me. I actually think the Jets are not going to be a bad team this year. When on my end, when we were doing our football preview show, I thought the Jets actually had a potential to be better than the Patriots. But if you're going to start Joe Flacco while Wilson's out, then you just don't want to win. I mean, that's really what it is. And Saleh saying what he's saying, I think is absolutely absurd. If I was a Jet fan, I would be livid over what he's doing because he's saying that and he's not giving his team the best chance to win. But yeah, Flacco looked awful. He actually made some throws. You had a Jet that dropped a ball in the end zone. So just some mistakes there. But I mean, I thought the Jets actually had a pretty decent off season, all told. And to go out there and start Flacco, I don't get it. I'll tell you what it is, and you guys will probably agree with me with this. They're worried that Mike White's going to go out there and he's going to play well, and then he's going to cause a quarterback controversy. That's, I think, what it is.
That's probably, after that one game against the Bengals, is probably what's going to, people are expecting that again.
And he had another good game later on in the year too, and then the game against the Colts he gets injured. But I mean, you're out there with you got a pretty decent team out there. I thought they drafted well. I think they're doing this slowly, which is smart, which is why I like the fact they didn't go out there and get Tyreek Hill. But to go out there then and do that and then start Flacco, to me, just made absolutely no sense.
Fonz, game aside for a second.
Yep.
Tommy Mack, you're right.
Technically,
exactly.
Yeah, shout out Tommy Mack in the comment section, diehard Jets fan, saying F Flacco, start Mike White. What was it like seeing your former quarterback out there against you? Because Joe Flacco was the quarterback you essentially grew up with.
Yeah, and I'll always have a soft spot. Always have a place in my heart as a Ravens fan. Joe Flacco, I'll always appreciate him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even though Lamar won MVP and Pro Bowl right now, if I had to make an all-time Ravens team, I would put Joe Flacco as the quarterback right now. I would. We'll see what happens Lamar years down the line. So I always have a soft spot for Flacco. But yeah, it did feel weird. it did feel weird seeing him. That was the first time. That's actually the first time I've seen him play live, because I never went to a game when he was the quarterback. The 2 times I went to a Ravens games, Lamar was the starting quarterback. So it was kind of weird to see. It was also weird to see him in number 19. I don't see a lot of quarterbacks wearing the number 19, but yeah, it felt weird. If I was like, wow, I really am old now, because again, like you said, Tom, I grew up when he was drafted in 2008. There are all those years, helped us with the Super Bowl, and had the ACL injury. And then when Lamar came in, he was still the starter, and then they benched him for Lamar, and then that whole transition. So yeah, it was weird to see. I'll always low-key root for Flacco because, again, soft spot for him. But, again, now putting the Ravens hat back on, I'm glad the defense showed up against him, because that would be kind of a little embarrassing if Flacco torched the Ravens defense at his age. Just going to throw that out there.
And back to the Ravens offense for a second before we move on to the Giants. I still think Mark Andrews is the number one option over Bateman, in my personal opinion. Again, you would know more, Fonz, because you're the Ravens fan, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. We see this all across the NFL. Mahomes is number one option. Is now Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing to have your tight end as your number one option. And I do think currently Mark Andrews is on the verge of surpassing Kelce as the best tight end in football. I think those are the 1 and 2 at this time, but the Ravens look to be in a really, really good spot. I think the Bengals might have a little Super Bowl hangover. Usually the loser of the Super Bowl does not do well next year. So I think it's very favorable for you guys to go out and win the AFC North. And another comment from Daniel, why not start Mike White? Again, I don't know. I have to be honest with you. I can't answer this question. I think it maybe more has to do with, Flacco's former team. You want to start him, seniority. I don't know what else it could be, Daniel. And then Tommy says, if they're worried about White being the best quarterback and not play him as a problem, fire everyone if that's the case.
Why don't you just play White if he balls out, and you have potential trade value too?
Well,
right?
I was going to go there next. I'm like, well, so if he plays well, then you know what? Then he's got trade value. And let's look at the Jets. I mean, the Jets got something for Sam Darnold. They've got stuff. They got something for Jamal Adams. I mean, look at what they've been able to do with those two guys.
You can get good for him.
Think about it. Now, you can't predict that Dak Prescott's going to go down there in Dallas, but quarterbacks get hurt. Yeah. So if White, and we don't know if he could really play well. I mean, we're taking off a short sample size, and that's the other thing too. But if he goes out there and plays decent enough in those first 3 to 4 weeks, then you know what? Maybe you could get something for him, because it's not like the Jets are close to winning yet. I mean, they're doing this slowly but surely. I thought they had a good offseason. I think the draft was good on their part, but then you go out there and start Flacco. Just makes no sense. I mean, it's 2022. That's the thing. I mean, this is not 2008, 2009 Joe Flacco we're talking about here. Right. So, I mean, I don't get it. And you know what? They're going back to Flacco again Sunday in Cleveland. Again, I don't think that makes any sense in the world. I actually think I think the Jets actually have a chance in that game, but I don't know why you continue to go to Flacco in this spot. And if you're solid, you can't be going out there and saying what you're saying and then back it up by starting Flacco in Cleveland on Sunday.
Yeah.
You have a lot of young talent on the team.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Wilson's hurt, yeah, but like put Mike White's younger quarterback, have him with the young players like Elijah Moore, Wilson, Breece Hall, Carter. Like, at least build that. Don't have like a 35-year-old Flacco or whatever, too.
Well, let's put it this way. If Flacco has a bad first half and the Jets are down, let's say 3 scores at the end of the first half there in Cleveland on Sunday, maybe you'll see a change. Because you know what? You can't – and that would look very, very bad on Saleh if the Jets are down that bad early on and you're having that situation and you have to go to White.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree a little bit as far as the Jets being better this year, mainly due to the fact that their schedule is tough. Zach Wilson will not be playing for at least the first 4 games, in my opinion, and that already puts them a seat back. Yeah. Miami's better. We saw that on Sunday, as expected. I think New England's the only team they could potentially salvage a win against in this division. I don't think they're beating Buffalo at all. Yeah, maybe you can have an argument for at home against Miami if the Jets are fully healthy.
I can see a split between them. I can see it.
I can see it, but I don't think it will happen. I think the Jets go 1-5 in the division, and this is not me being a Giants fan saying this. I think this is the sad reality of the situation, that the Jets only win 4 to 5 games this year because of what they've been dealt with and just the quarterback play right now.
Yeah. Well,
plus,
that prediction I made was before the Wilson injury. That's
and
for
also
sure. And
Mekhi
yeah, their
Becton.
schedule is tougher. Yes.
And Mekhi Becton as well.
Yeah, and then
No one
Dwayne
predicted
Brown,
that.
and Dwayne Brown, then their replacement goes down too. I mean, look, injuries are part of it. That's for sure.
It sucks. It sucks for guys like Brees Hall, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, all that. But Fonz, if you have to hop off now, just let us know. We're going to talk about the Giants, though, if you want to stay put for that, because I think that win made you very happy because the Titans are the bane of your existence.
Yeah, I'll stay for the next 5 minutes or so because I want to just hear, because, again, the Titans, John, if you don't know, the Titans are the bane of my existence. I absolutely despise the Tennessee Titans. 8-8. Also, I think, Tom, I went 8-8 in my quick picks, which, again, this is like Tennessee Titans. Every year they were 8-8, 8-8. Marcus Mariota, Brian Tannehill, stupid quarterback controversy. And what happened? They beat the Ravens in the playoffs. So that was to bite me in the ass. So, Tom knows I hate him. Eric Henry's a really good running back, so I can't hate him, but I hate everybody else in the Titans.
He is, but Derrick Henry was held to 82 yards on Sunday, and
Yeah.
I'll have Johnny talk about the bulk of the Giants game because I'll be talking about it tomorrow night on Big Blue Avenue.
Yeah.
Brian Dable has a pair of balls, man, going for two and calling the Kansas City special with the little whip pass to Travis Kelce, to Saquon Barkley.
They've done it with Travis Kelce. I know you meant they've done that with Travis Kelce before.
The little shovel pass, and the fact that Barkley has to break two tackles. And one thing that I'm really impressed with Brian Dable, they managed to get Daniel Jones to have the fourth best passer rating this week. If you take that interception away, he has a pretty solid game. I'm not putting the fumble on Daniel Jones. Josh Azudu got absolutely trashed on that play. Jones couldn't get past his first progression. And the fact that they utilized what the defense was allowing them to do. They only played an 8+ man box on 5% of Barkley's carries. And Brian Dable, coming from a pass-heavy offense with Buffalo, Mike Kafka, pass-heavy offense with Kansas City, and the Giants run the ball down Tennessee's throat. That's the difference between great coaching and coaching. Tennessee just pounded the rock with Henry, pounded the rock. They didn't make adjustments. And I think it speaks volumes to why the Giants won this football game. Their coaching staff got more out of a weaker roster than what Joe Judge's coaching staff last year could get out of a better roster. And to be 1-0 for the first time in 6 years, second time in 11 years, to make matters worse, is insane. I love it. Well-deserved NFC Offensive Player of the Week in Saquon Barkley. And one other fun fact that Fonz might not find so fun, as I know you hate the Titans, but as somewhat of a Derrick Henry fan, Henry had 56 rushing yards in the first half. Second carry of the second half, he had 18 yards. So you do the math, 74 yards. Henry finished with 82. He had 8 yards the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I think you got to give kudos to Dable for a couple of other reasons besides that gutsy call going in the fourth quarter, which in real time, that 2-point conversion, I loved it and obviously worked out, which is great. But there's two other things I like with Dable. Number one, being able to make adjustments in the second half when the Giants were down 13-0. You know what? That's already something right there that you see that they're making adjustments in the second half. And also after Jones throws that interception, you saw it on the Fox broadcast, him going to Dable, it's going to Judge. I'm going to Judge. Jeez, I got Joe Judge's name on my mind right now. Going to Jones on the sideline and basically channeling his almost inner Tom Coughlin, putting his hands up like this, saying, "What are you doing?" Off that interception. I mean, I love it. I mean, good for Dable. And so you know what? I mean, look. I mean, it wasn't pretty first half. I mean, this was a game of two halves. It was a game that was like that roller coaster that you have as a Giants fan regarding Daniel Jones. But look, I'm not going to look, we're 1-0, but I mean, you take it. A win is a win. You take it and you move on, and it's a big deal because, like Tom, like you said, only the second time in 11 years you start 1-0, and all of it, and not only 1-0, but the things that you see, the adjustments in the second half. Barkley, the offensive line, which I thought had a great day. Neal and Thomas allowing Barkley to get to run more. So a lot of good things. And as far as the Titans go, I was not high on the Titans at all this year, guys. Ryan Tannehill, I don't think it's really just because of him. That offensive line is still a mess. They have no weapons on offense whatsoever, really, outside of Derrick Henry. He has no receiving weapons. They lost A.J. Brown, obviously. They traded him. So, to me, the Titans don't really have much of anything. And, again, if you looked at how dominant that first half was, you're only down 13-0. I mean, I think you had almost signed for it, but then the Giants come right out in the second half and score. And, yeah, maybe we got a little lucky there at the end on that last drive, taking 2 third-down penalties on defense and having a missed field goal by Bullock at the end. But, hey, you know what? Sometimes that's a sign of good things to come, because that's a game that in years past the Giants would have lost. Let's be honest. I mean, they would have gone down the field, kicked that field goal, and won it. That's another reason why I love going for 2 there at the end on Sunday. So really tough first half, a couple of moments in the second half just make you, that roller coaster emotion. But hey, you know what? Kudos to Dable for making adjustments, for the play calling and stuff, for Kafka, Jones, Barkley. I mean, you've got to be happy that you saw the good signs and you 1-0, and all of a sudden now, and I know, Tom, you'll probably get into this more tomorrow, but all of a sudden now you start looking ahead and things can start getting pretty interesting. You've got the Panthers coming up Sunday. You've got a Dakless Dallas team at home in week 3, and you've got the Bears. So, I mean, starting to get kind of interesting in Giants land now.
Fonz, before you go here, what's your take on the Giants after week 1?
I was very impressed, and it was cool to see. I've always liked Saquon Barkley. He had a couple of bad seasons with injury and just struggling overall, but it was nice to see him back in the fold. I know he had over 100 yards rushing. I forgot the exact amount, but he looked like his old self out there, and that's I always root for Barkley, so it was good to see. And I'm a big fan of Dable. I know, Tom, you liked O'Connell as the best hiring this offseason, but I actually would put the argument that Dable was a really good hiring. You saw what he did in Buffalo. I think there's a really bright future going on for the Giants. This is coming from an outsider here, and I really am excited to see what you guys can do. I know you got a lot of young talent too. I know there's still questions about Daniel Jones, but he did take away the interception. He had a pretty solid game, and I don't blame him necessarily for that fumble as well too. But they got a bright future, guys. I'm telling you, they do. And if Barkley keeps playing like that, I think you guys are going to be all right. I just need Kadarius Toney to do a little better in fantasy football. That's a side little thing.
Yeah, only 7 offensive snaps. So
and two rushing attempts for 20 yards or something. Too. Again, that's just me.
He'll play more moving forward. He'll play more.
Should. He's good. I don't get why they're not playing him. He's
packages, I think, and the fact that he wasn't necessarily all that healthy in the preseason, and your guy Darius Slayton didn't even dress.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was high on Darius Slayton years ago. I don't know what the heck happened to him. Yeah, I don't. I said, Tom, this guy might be in your plans for a while. I don't.
8 touchdowns as a rookie.
I don't know what the hell happened to Slayton. I have no idea.
Fonz, final thoughts?
Well, 11 years, guys. This is awesome stuff. I'm glad to be a part of the brand. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. I'm sorry for my little internet here too. Technology is but glad I was able to talk some Ravens, talk some Giants with you guys. Johnny, it's always good to see you. Tom, it's always a pleasure to see you as well. So yeah, thank you guys. I'll let you guys continue on with your Giants talk and everything else with the NFL. I'll just say this quickly. My plug for my show, Four Corners, Monday at 7:00 with me, Mike Zano, and Albert Donor. If you haven't checked out this past episode, go on Review and Preview Sports on wherever you get your podcast. You'll see this on here too. Me and Mike and Albert talked about AEW, the whole backstage thing that was going on where there's legit fights breaking out after a show. So, and there's a lot of turmoil. A lot of people are saying that they're not liking the certain executive vice presidents who are also wrestlers, that they favor themselves into winning matches and whatever too. So a lot of little things going on back there. So a little more details coming on, and we'll definitely talk about it. But I'll let you guys continue your show. Well, thank you guys. Hope everyone has a good night, and I'll see you guys. Later. Go Ravens!
Thanks, Fonz. Appreciate it.
That's awesome.
That is Fonz DeFalco, the host of Four Corners from Oyster Bay, New York. Fonz lives by the bay. Johnny, you live by the beach.
Yeah, I do.
Myrtle Beach, and I was just there a month ago. But I guess to finish up here on this Giants game, I do think Brian Dable, in my opinion, I'd have him right up there with O'Connell as the second best hire right now, only because I think the Vikings are in a better position to win right now than the Giants are. I think the Giants are still rebuilding to an extent.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't think Barkley's going to go off like this every single week. I just think the Titans basically asked the Giants to feed Saquon the ball. And Barkley's the best player on this football team. He still is. He's been that guy for the past 5 years, regardless of how poorly he's played. He's been the best player on the team. And you look at Evan Neal compared to all the other rookie tackles, he was great. It's a little disappointed Daniel Bellinger didn't have a catch, but I think his time will come. And then hopefully Wandale is okay. I know Aaron Robinson had his appendix removed today, so he's out. So I don't know who the hell is going to start at that second corner spot next week. But
yeah.
Johnny, you're in the minority this week. The Carolinas are going to be going crazy. You get the game on Fox, and want to know? Yeah, I'm taking this one game at a time. I'm not looking too far ahead, but if something tells me there's going to be a letdown at some point with just the history of this team. But if they could just take this one game at a time, they could be 4-0 heading to London.
Yeah, I could see that, but this is the swing game and all that, Tom, coming up on Sunday against Carolina, because you have to think about it from Carolina's perspective. You thought the Baker Mayfield revenge game, and Baker did, for the most part, did not have a good game Sunday against Cleveland. Christian McCaffrey's out there. He had like one good run. So, and even still, they had a chance to win that game. It took a 58-yard field goal at the end for them in a week where kickers were not making field goals at all. It took a 58-yarder for them to lose that game. So you have to think that Mayfield's going to come out, and him and McCaffrey, you thought the revenge game was last Sunday. You think that this week now could be that sort of situation. But you have to also think that giant home opener too. Crowd's going to be electric. So it's a tough call as to what I see, but this is that swing game, because all of a sudden now, if you do win this game Sunday, you're 2-0, and you're going to play a Dallas team that I don't know if we're going to get to this, but I'll bring it up real quick here. Even when Dak was out there, they did not look impressive at all on Sunday against Tampa, and I wasn't high on them at all. I thought they had a terrible offseason, and then of course to lose Smith before the season starts is a huge blow, and now Cooper Rush, we don't know really what he's going to be. And the Cowboys this week take on the Bengals, who are also going to be a team looking to try and make a bounce back effort out of a poor week on Sunday. So a lot of interesting matchups coming up this week for sure. But look, after 1 week, I'm happy, but I also have to be realistic. We're going to have growing pains throughout this year, but this Carolina team, I know they torched them last year. It's a different team though this year, and got to be careful with Baker going off. He may try to exploit the secondary of the Giants this week. Maybe you see, Robbie Anderson. You got to watch out for him.
DJ Moore.
Yep, he's an up and coming guy down there in Carolina.
And McCaffrey.
So and McCaffrey could go off for a good day too. So guys to watch there on Sunday. But you know what? As long as Jones doesn't turn the ball over and that line helps with Barkley, Giants can be right up there too.
And Nick Chubb had 140-plus rushing yards for the Browns last week against that Panthers front. So it could be another Barkley-dominated game, which would be nice. The only difference between the Titans and the Panthers really is that the Panthers are a team with more explosive offensive weapons. Outside of Derrick Henry, the next best player on that offense is probably Robert Woods or the rookie Treylon Burks.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets interesting. Baker did not look great in his debut. I think this is another quarterback the Giants can get in his mind a little bit. He's played at MetLife before. The crowd is going to be rocking. I think the Giants are in trouble when it comes to getting the ball to the receivers and coverage. I think the Giants are a very bad coverage team this year. We saw what Dontrell Hilliard, out of all people, did last week, scoring 2 touchdowns.
Yep.
But at the same time, even without Ojulari and Thibodeau, can Baker make the plays to win the football game? I still think you have to focus on McCaffrey and put the ball in Baker's hands. Make Baker Mayfield beat you, similar to what they tried to do with Ryan Tannehill last week. Is Jones the quarterback next year? Mike, you probably should have asked this question tomorrow night on Big Blue Avenue. I think they wind up giving him the tag if he plays well in this scheme. Again, if this is the worst we see out of Jones, it all depends how he plays, right? I can't really answer the question right now. If I had to answer the question right now, I would say no, because of the injury history. But if it comes to the play, I would say yes. When everyone's healthy, we know he has the talent to get it done. When you give him time, look what he can do. He can throw a 65-yard bomb to Sterling Shepard. He gets past his first read. Yeah, he has players that he can hit. But right now, if this was the Giants with Joe Judge or Pat Shurmur, I would 100% say yes. But since it's a new regime, I'm going to go, and Mike, take this with a grain of salt, I'm going to go 51 no, 49 yes. I do think there's a big chance that he comes back next year, but the new regime and the injuries are what's causing me to think it might not be possible. But yeah, I think he's playing for a franchise tag ultimately, Johnny.
Yeah, I agree. And there could be, and like you said, new regime. If Jones struggles throughout this year, it's not a far reach to think that he's going to get benched at some point this year because, like you said, it's a different regime. That's part of the thing the Giants are doing here, too. But here's the other thing I'll say, too, and I think when you look at this Giants team, I don't think they're going to be among the worst teams in football this year. So if your thoughts about them drafting a quarterback in next year's draft, they're not going to be bad enough to have that happen. Now, the teams that are going to be bad, they may not be looking for a quarterback either. So that may be your other thing too. But this Giants team to me, and I know, Tom, we've spoken about this before a lot off air, I think they're too talented and too good of a team given their favorable schedule that they have this year. And like you've seen some moments already, that they're going to be among the worst teams. I don't think they're going to be like that. So I would say right now, I'll answer that question now. Do I think he's the quarterback next year? I do, because I don't think there's going to be another better option out there because, you don't know about quarterbacks coming out of college. I know it's a very quarterback-heavy draft.
I'm changing my answer.
Yeah.
I'm changing my answer. He will be the quarterback next year, Mike.
But see, the thing is, too, and again, something we've also spoken about, too, if you're still questioning if he can be the answer, then he can't be. It's like talking about somebody for the Hall of Fame. If you're questioning if somebody's a Hall of Famer, he's not the Hall of Famer. If you're questioning if somebody can be the quarterback, after 4 or 5 years, he can't be the answer. So 100%. You may have to go. So we'll have to see.
Zimenez brought a lot of good energy on Sunday. I do agree with that. Another guy on a contract year in that 2019 draft class. He didn't have any sacks, but great game from him. Mike said, I'll ask it again tomorrow, too. So, Mike, historically, the schools that these two quarterbacks play for don't produce good NFL quarterbacks. I'm higher on Young than Stroud. I don't want the Giants to get Stroud. He's not going to be a good fit, in my opinion. Plus, I did not like the way he played against Notre Dame, especially after seeing what Marshall did last week. I think a guy like Will Levis or Tyler Van Dyke would be more reasonable to where the Giants land draft-wise. Plus, Levis did play a couple of years with Wandale in Kentucky, so that would schematically make sense, Johnny. Tyler Van Dyke is a guy I really like, too, good pocket passer. I'm not sold on C.J. Stroud. I would be more willing to give in a little bit with Bryce Young, but we're not going to get Bryce Young either because he's going to go early. He's going to go very, very early. The Giants will not have either of these two guys on their roster next year. It's not happening.
I totally agree with you. I don't see that happening. I mean, if there's going to be a guy you watch, my notebook is out for Tom. The guy I'm curious about is the guy out of Florida.
Richardson.
Yeah, Richardson. He's kind of looking more like a more mobile and sturdy version of Cam Newton, I think. Mm-hmm. So that could be a guy to watch for too. But But is he better than Jones? See, that's the question we have to answer.
Yeah, do you want to move on from Jones for him and take another risk?
It's totally different. It's one thing to play in the SEC or the Big Ten,
true,
college and stuff. It's another thing when you're playing in the NFL. It's two totally different things. So,
how about this name,
Stetson Bennett?
See, that's the thing too, because he was never originally a starter. I don't know about him either. I think he's a junior this year, and I think he'll probably come back to Georgia next year.
Yeah,
if I'm being honest, I don't think he'll be an option.
I don't see him coming out. I don't.
I forgot about this. Yes, Richardson's not eligible because he's wait. No, Brian, I think you're wrong. He's a redshirt sophomore, so he is eligible to come out. Remember, he redshirted. It's 3 years past your high school graduation that you have to wait. It's not.
I think they've been talking about him. I remember watching their first game against Utah when they won that one 29-26, and they were talking about that.
Yeah, he is eligible, Brian. If you want to fact check that, go for it. But
I believe he's
he
eligible.
is a redshirt sophomore. At the
Yeah.
moment. But let's move on to speaking of quarterbacks. Mitch Trubisky, another quarterback with a new team, surviving against the Bengals in overtime, 23-20. I thought this was a game that, again, I hate ties, and we almost saw two in week one.
Yeah.
Not a good look, Johnny. Najee Harris left with an injury. TJ Watt left injured. He has a partially torn pec. He'll miss several weeks. T. Higgins left with a concussion for the Bengals. Bad week for injuries, but it was a great week for the Steelers defense. 7 sacks, 3 of them from Alex Highsmith, stepping up big time for TJ Watt. And that Steelers defense forced 5 Joe Burrow turnovers, 4 picks, 1 fumble. And then, of course, Joe Mixon over 150 total scrimmage yards, and then Jamar Chase, 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. The Bengals have weapons. They'll be fine, but an impressive win by the Steelers.
Absolutely. And I think just talking about from Burrow for a second, I think, like I said, I think this goes back to also what we were talking about with Stafford. They don't play in the preseason coming off that appendectomy, and he looked very, very rusty. And I was shocked how bad that offensive line was. We thought that they retooled it, and again, it's only one game, but allowing all those sacks. And yeah, Trubisky, I think the big thing you take out of this game, Tom, is the fact that Trubisky played really well. There have been a lot of doubters with him, and I actually thought he was going to be a little bit better being in that system down there in Pittsburgh. But yeah, they get a great win here, but it comes at a cost. Like you said, Harris left injured. Now, he was on Shine On Sports with Adam Shine earlier this week, and looks like he is going to play Sunday. But the TJ Watt thing's a big deal, with Watt, and then they had it's Fitzpatrick there. Minka had a good game defensively, and Watt right now, the way it looks like, it may not be season ending. It looks like he's going to try the rehab process here first, but we'll see. Yeah, Mike, I think that's certainly a possibility, and I would look, if Trubisky plays well these next several weeks, I would actually look at him as being possibly a trade candidate. If we know quarterbacks are going to get hurt throughout the season, it's just a reality of the sport. So if Trubisky plays well, there will be a team that will go out there and make a push for him.
Brian McArdle says ESPN.com is wrong. Shocker. He did play in 2020, so he kept his redshirt status, but only 4 games he played. So, yeah. Thanks for fact checking that,
down
Brian.
there in Florida. He's looked really, really good in the early going there. But yeah, so that Steelers to me one of the big winners of the week. I think the Bengals will be fine. Look, I think they're getting a great matchup going down there to Dallas next week to get a nice bounce back turnaround game down there. Well, Tom, I know you're happy about this one.
Yeah,
right?
That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
they did it. They always split the Packers every year. At least they win at home. New head coach Kevin O'Connell. The offense looks great. Kirk Cousins looks marvelous. Second best passer rating in the league. This week, I think Mike Zimmer was holding them back, unfortunately. Now they improved their secondary. They got Andrew Booth. They got Lewis Cine. They have the weapons on defense to get it done. The defense had 4 sacks on Rodgers. They held Green Bay to just 7 points. Justin Jefferson did his thing, 184 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. He might be the best receiver in football at this point. Rodgers did not get help from his receiving core at all, though. Christian Watson dropped the touchdown. How concerned are you with the Packers? Should you be concerned? Because we saw this last year. They get blown out by the Saints, 38-3. Rodgers looks bad, comes back, wins MVP again, and they make it to the second round of the playoffs. So it wasn't like, what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny because that's what they were mentioning in the broadcast, and I remember that last year too. To me, Tom, it's different this year. Going to this season, I thought the Vikings closed the gap. The Packers are not deep at wide receiver this year. Losing Adams to the Raiders. Al Lazard was not there on Sunday. He might be back this week, but the Packers are not deep at wide receiver. The defense is very suspect. We saw that. Look how wide open Justin Jefferson was on some of those throws. Cousins was able to step up in the pocket and make some of those deep throws there on Sunday. So I think this. My prediction before the season was that these two teams will be playing relevant football for the NFC North in Week 18. I think it is that close, and I could see either one of them winning that division in Week 18. I gave the slight advantage to the Packers, but I'll be honest with you, with the lack of depth at wide receiver for Green Bay, Rodgers would almost have to play like an MVP candidate this year for them to do it. And I think O'Connell, like you said, I think the coaching staff, you already see him making a big difference because some of those throws that Cousins was making, being able to step up, you haven't seen that in years past. So these two teams will be playing to Week 18 for that NFC North.
They might finish with the same record too. I mean, I'm predicting both of them to finish 12-5, and this win, Week 1, is that more important now for this, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I'm going to take a hot take right now. O'Connell wins Coach of the Year in the National Football League as a rookie. Again, top assistant under Sean McVay, very, very young guy. It's hard because, Kirk Cousins still has a lot of talent. The offensive line is a little bit better now. They got Christian Darrisaw back healthy for year number 2, which is huge. So I think they're going to go far this year. They may even contend with teams like the Bucks, like the Packers, like they're already contending with the Packers, the LA Rams. It'll be very interesting how that goes. But moving on to the next game, Johnny, another team in the NFC that's predicted to do very well this year. The Philadelphia Eagles outlast the Lions 38-35. They get outscored by Detroit 14-0 in the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts did not look all that impressive to me, despite the game that A.J. Brown had, 155 receiving yards on 10 caught balls in a new uniform. I liked that they gave Miles Sanders the ball more, but the Eagles' defense couldn't stop the running game. Swift had 144 yards. Jamal Williams had 2 touchdowns. They gave up a touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Hurts struggled and the defense struggled. Those are two very big concerns for me because you're playing the Lions. Now, granted, the Lions are a much improved team this year. I think the Lions will be in the wild card conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But for the Eagles to give up 35 points in Week 1, things need to change, whether it's personnel, playing Jordan Davis more. I'm not sure what it is because the Eagles went up big early. What killed me was watching Bradbury get the pick 6, and then after that,
first thing I thought of, I tweeted that out. I said, "Yeah, there's another one." Yep.
But Johnny, I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts. I think the Eagles should be more concerned about Hurts than the Giants should be about Jones. I mean, that's how big of a concern I think this is long term.
Yeah, a good test to that, Tom, will be Monday night next week. They take on the Vikings. That'll be a good test for them. The jury to me is still out on Jalen Hurts. I think he's still got the potential to be a good enough quarterback in that system. We'll see. I mean, I think right now they're in a favorable position given the situation now in Dallas, but I would like to see how he's going to rebound on Sunday. If you're a betting person, you took the Eagles, you got to be furious because for most of the game they had the game covered and then the Lions got it late. But
right.
I think a good test will be this upcoming week, Tom, when they take on the Vikings. That'll be a good test. I'm a little bit higher on her. I think I'm a little bit higher on him than you are, but the jury's still out on him for sure.
I just hate the Eagles so much, so I am a little biased.
I understand. I mean, I try and be fair. I mean, I think he's in a better system. I mean, I love the 2-3 wide receiver set that they have down there. So I think he'll be all right.
It's just if Devontae Smith doesn't get a catch against a porous Detroit secondary, something is wrong. Whether it's play calling,
That is actually, and I'm glad you brought that up because that would be the one thing I would take out of it is Devontae Smith, who I liked a lot coming out of Alabama. I wish the Giants got him, but I don't want to rehash that draft. That's a guy that I keep an eye on going into Monday against Minnesota.
Yeah, I think he could have a big game potentially on Sunday night. That is,
I think it's Monday. It's part of the double. It's part of the doubleheader that they have on Monday night this upcoming week.
Got it.
Yeah, it's tight. I think it's Titans Bills at 7:15 Eastern, and then the Vikings and the Eagles are at 8:30.
8:30. Awesome. Another team in the NFC East, this one is not projected to do as well this year, especially after the embarrassment on Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 19-3, a game that saw Dak Prescott leave with an injury. But before the injury happened, Johnny, Dak didn't look like himself. This is a Dallas team. They lost Amari Cooper in free agency. They lost Tyron Smith to a season-ending injury. They moved Tyler Smith out to left tackle. They lost their starting left guard, Connor McGovern, so their whole left side is gone, essentially. Their quarterback's gone. Their number one receiver's gone. Outside of Micah Parsons, there's nothing there on this Dallas team, in my opinion. Brady had pretty good numbers. Fournette ran all over them. Yeah. Godwin wasn't even 100%. Devin White had a game. It just wasn't a good look. It really wasn't. Now, Parsons had 2 sacks, which is why, I love that guy. I think he's going to do great things, and he'll be up there for Defensive Player of the Year. But outside of him and maybe Zach Martin, this Cowboys team, I don't know what's going to happen because now the quarterback situation, Jerry Jones came out and said today they're planning on going with Cooper Rush until Dak comes back, no pun intended. So what do you think about this game and about this Dallas team?
Well, Dak wasn't playing well before the injury. So first things first, before we take anything else out of that, Dak they couldn't get anything going against Tampa before the injury. And here's the biggest problem that Dallas has, or one of the many problems too. They lose so much in the offseason. They don't fill needs. They're very injury plagued already. And Tom, the problem they're going to run into now, Jerry Jones can tell me 4 weeks all he wants outside from the initial 6 to 8 week diagnosis. But take a look at the Cowboys schedule. Leading up to that bye week in week 9, it's very challenging. And so Ezekiel Elliott's going to have to step up and be the Zeke of a couple of years ago if the Cowboys are going to have a chance. But I will tell you right now, and this is not an overreaction, given what they've lost, given what they have right now, and given all the injuries, I think after week 1, I think the Cowboys are done. It's very difficult for me to believe that they're going to be able to, unless Cooper Rush steps in and be the hero. It's very difficult for me to see how they're going to get things going because just take a look at their schedule. They've got the Bengals who are coming off they're going to be fired up. They're 8-point favorites, which all you need to know, the Cowboys are an 8-point underdog at home. You don't see that happen that much. You've got them. You've got a Giants team, which is going to probably have some momentum either way. That game's at home. They got to go to the Rams. They got to play the Eagles. Their schedule is, it's challenging. So I don't see how they're going to bounce out of it. And this is not going to be a situation where you can go 7-10, 8 or 9, and not only win the NFC East. Maybe you're lucky if you get back into a wild card situation. But yeah, Tom, it's hard for me to say that right now.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. Before the Dak injury, I didn't have this team making the playoffs because I think the East only gets one team this year. I still think it's Philadelphia. Washington played well, though. So I think even with that all considered, Dallas could wind up in last place. And I talked to a Dallas fan yesterday, and they love this. Cowboys fans apparently love this because they're guaranteed a top 5 pick. And eventually they can move on from guys like Zeke and Dak when the time comes. I still think Dak should be the quarterback, but it's more Ezekiel Elliott than anything. That contract is wasting away Dak's prime.
Yes, exactly.
It's terrible. It is
totally
terrible,
agree.
and it's sad. It is very sad for Dallas fans. But the Giants, Eagles, and Commanders need to be the opportunistics and take advantage of that. Also, I think McCarthy's out after this year. I think there's nothing special about him as a head coach. I always thought he was average and was carried by Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre for the first year or two. But yeah, I think McCarthy's out of a job, sadly, after this year.
And the thing is, this year may not even be his fault, but just because of given the expectation and stuff, it's going to fall on him.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Moving on, the Wild Wild West, Johnny. Chargers Raiders, great game, wild one.
Yep.
Justin Herbert, 3 touchdown passes. The Chargers defense had 6 sacks, 3 from Khalil Mack, 1.5 from Joey Bosa. They forced 3 Derek Carr interceptions. Devontae Adams looked pretty good, though, in his Raiders debut. 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. People forget Carr and Adams were college teammates at Fresno State.
Yep.
And Vegas did outscore the Chargers 16-7 in the second half. So I do think there is reason for optimism for both teams moving ahead. I was impressed with the Chargers, how they were able to hold on to that lead. And now they got the Chiefs on a short week. So what do you take from this game for both teams?
Tom, I am very high on the Chargers. I think that they can win the AFC West. All 4 of those teams can win the division. There's no doubt about it. Now, is it realistic? Somebody's going to have a disappointing year there in the AFC West, I believe. But I'm really high on the Chargers. Now, it was a costly win, though. You know, J.C. Jackson's questionable to play now Thursday night. Keenan Allen on a short week off the hamstring injuries, they were saying is very unlikely to play tomorrow. So it is kind of a costly win for the Chargers, but you know, I love Herbert. I think him and Allen are going to be duking it out for the MVP there in the AFC. But yeah, I love the Chargers. I think they're going to win the division. I think they're going to play really well, and I'm very curious to see now them going into tomorrow against the Chiefs. Arrowhead Stadium is a very tough place for road teams to play, but if there's anybody that can go in there and give them a challenge, it's Herbert. I just wish that they would have Allen playing, because I think that's going to be a big deal. It's one less weapon for them against a Kansas City team that I think, while they may still have the best quarterback in that division, have the worst defense there. So that would be my concern. The Raiders are really an interesting spot because, again, in that division, can they get a wild card? Sure. But is it realistic that all 4 of those teams are going to be able to do well? No. I would say the biggest concern, well, I'm not high on the Raiders defense, number 1. And number 2, a concern that I would have with them is the same concern that I actually have with the Chargers, and that's the coach. You know, Josh McDaniel hasn't really done this. We all know about Brandon Staley's history with the Chargers. So that would be my concerns with the Raiders. But good win for the Chargers, maybe a little costly, though, going into tomorrow night.
Absolutely. And I think the stunner of the week, sticking with the AFC West, and I want to go on a little rant about this. The Seattle Seahawks stunning the Denver Broncos 17-16 in Russell Wilson's return to Seattle. Now, granted, I think we knew this would be a tough game, especially for Russ with the circumstances, playing against the 12th man now. It's an absolute disgrace that the Seahawks fan base booed him, in my opinion. Russ, 340 passing yards and a touchdown in his return. I did not like that Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon continue to swap possessions. I don't like it. Make Javonte Williams the bell cow back. You drafted him in the 2nd round last year for a reason. I think the inconsistency is why each running back wound up fumbling. The fact that each of the running backs essentially fumbled at the goal line is pathetic.
Yeah.
So I think Williams needs the ball a lot more. I liked what I saw out of Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton in the receiving game. I think they're both very similar talent-wise, and they're both young. Also, Javonte had 11 catches in the passing game. He is a good pass-catching running back. Bradley Chubb had 2 sacks. Geno Smith looked solid. 2 touchdown passes. Again, good receiving core, though. Only 3 points were scored in the second half by the Seahawks. But the biggest thing that I hated from this game was Nathaniel Hackett's coaching. Now, granted, I'm going to give him somewhat of a free pass, but not fully. It is his first game as an NFL head coach, and he admitted that he more than likely made a mistake by not putting the ball in his $250 million quarterback's hands on 4th and 6. I think that was a huge mistake. McManus can hit a 64-yard field goal, but it's not a high percentage play. It is not a high percentage play. The higher percentage play is for Russell Wilson to get 6 yards. You still have more timeouts. You still have more time, and the field goal is now closer, and you put $200 in my pocket rather than none. The fact that I hit all my other legs this week makes me really pissed off. The most important or the most sure thing to happen didn't happen. And that's why you play the games, Johnny. This is why they play the games. You never know. What's the saying? Any given Sunday. But
or Monday.
Absolutely pathetic coaching performance. Not just by Hackett, though. I think the entire Broncos coaching staff, the offensive coordinator, the defense was good. The special teams wasn't great either. It's just really bad red zone efficiency, too. They would have never gotten into this situation if they didn't fumble.
Right. Yeah, and Nathaniel Hackett, it's another team that you worry about with the coaching because he hasn't done this before. I agree with you 100%. I don't – Tom's parlay is fired up. Well, let me
That's
tell you.
Noah, by the way, on YouTube. Shout
Absolutely.
out Noah Didler.
Yep. There's a lot not to like there from the Denver side of things. And, yeah, that field goal that McManus missed, it's outside of his range. I mean, if you look at his career history – 62-yard field goals. He's missed a 62-yarder in 2016 and in 2018, a 63-yarder in 2021, a 64-yarder in 2019, 64-yarder from Monday, and then a 70-yarder back in 2021. And pretty much basically you're saying that he's a better option than your $240+ million quarterback. Yeah. To be fair, though, let's give Geno Smith some credit. He had a very, very good first half. He did tail off in the second half, but at the same time, you know what? This is a guy that's been out of the league for years. It seems like he's barely started. Not putting the ball in Russell's hands like they're leaving it in the garage. Try to bomb. Yeah, that's a very good one there for sure. It's give credit to Seattle. I always say Seattle's not going to have a good year, but they're a team that you still don't want to play at home because they are going to be spoilers to some teams this year, and they're probably going to maybe not steal, but get an extra win or two out west. So, yeah, not a good day though. Not a good day for Nathaniel Hackett's coaching debut, and that's a concern that I would have about Denver because you have to remember one thing about Denver last year. Their rookies played very, very well. They were among the top teams in football getting production out of their rookie players. So they're still kind of an up-and-coming team. You solved this big problem that they've had in getting a quarterback. You have that now, and we'll see. I think they bounce back, but yeah, not ideal Monday night for sure.
Not ideal is correct. And those were the top games of week 1, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's sticking with the coaching, Johnny. We'll start with our most impressive coaching performance of week 1. I'll start with this one, and then you'll start with the least.
Yep.
I'm going to go with Kevin O'Connell. You beat the Green Bay Packers convincingly by 16 points. Your defense held them to 7. So clearly you're doing something right. You went in at home and did your job, and I think it was a near flawless performance from O'Connell. I mean, you made Kirk Cousins look like an MVP caliber quarterback on Sunday. So that speaks volumes to how good of a debut he had with a team like the caliber of the Green Bay Packers. That was my impressive new coach for week 1.
You want me to give me a most impressive or?
Yeah, you can give me your most impressive.
My most impressive new coach in a new team is Brian Daboll, because he was able to do stuff that you had not seen from the Giants in years past, making adjustments in the second half when you're down by 2 scores. When Jones throws that interception, he goes to him and yells at him on the sideline, questions that terrible throw. And then also going for two there at the end to take the lead. And so, you know what? I mean, I'm very, very impressed. And, you're seeing all these signs post game and, in the days after. To me, I think he's a big winner and the most impressive new guy out to start week 1.
Good pick. Yeah, I definitely considered him as well. I think him and O'Connell were neck and neck.
Yeah, I think if you would have taken Daboll, I would have taken O'Connell. But
yeah,
McDaniel
was good too. I think he'd be third on my list.
Yes, I agree with you down there for sure.
Let's get to the least. I'll start with you here. Who was your least impressive new coach in week 1?
Man, you hate to say Nathaniel Hackett, but I didn't like a lot of his decisions, and then at the very end there, that field goal, and I don't care who it's against or what, but a guy who's never hit a long field goal like that before. I mean, if you have Sebastian Janikowski in his prime, we could talk, but yeah, not at all impressed by him there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Hackett had a great game at all, coaching wise. I just did not like the way he managed the game. To be a little different, though, I'm going to go with Dennis Allen of the New Orleans Saints. Yes, they won the game, but they barely survived arguably the worst team in football. I thought Kyle Pitts did too much damage. I thought Mariota looked a little bit too good out there for comfort, especially when you're a defensive-minded guy. So I'm going to roll with Dennis Allen here. I hoped Chris Olave would have gotten a little more involved in the offense, and I just wasn't a fan of the defensive play. It was more the defensive play, and I get it. They only gave up 16 points, but the Falcons were able to move the football down the field and control field position, which is why it took the Saints till the very last second, essentially, to win this football game.
Yeah.
It's a shame that it came down. So I think Dennis Allen, I'll pick him here. I do agree with you that Hackett was the worst, but to be a little different, I'll go with Allen here.
Yeah, that's not a bad choice either. I mean, Falcons are not going to be good this year. I mean, I know Noah's going to kill me for saying this, but I think that they're, if not the worst team in football going into this season. And I think that'll be another team that you look at a quarterback switch at some point. I think you will see them go to Desmond Ridder at some point this later on this season.
Absolutely. And
team lost a lot in the receiving core this offseason. There's no reason they should be scoring 26 points, especially against a Saints team that, is going to be looking to making a push for the NFC wild card.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Saints could definitely be a playoff team this year. But let's preview some of the top week 2 games, Johnny. Tomorrow night, Chargers-Chiefs. Will Keenan Allen play? I doubt it. I'd say there's a 99% chance he doesn't because hamstring issues can linger. I'm rolling with the Chiefs here. I think they're at home. They'll probably split this year, the Chiefs and the Chargers. I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers pull it off, but I think it'll take more of a defensive effort than anything. And the Chargers are going to have to lean heavily on guys like Austin Eckler and Mike Williams to get the job done offensively. So I just think the Chiefs have a little bit more. But don't be shocked if Herbert pulls this off. He has the talent to do it. I just think the Chiefs in front of that home crowd, a little bit too good here.
Yeah, a couple of things. So Keenan Allen has already been ruled out for tomorrow night.
Okay.
So he is out. And I agree with you. If Justin Herbert is the kind of guy that can go into Arrowhead tomorrow and pull this game out for sure, I think they do split. And my prediction for the season was that the Chargers do win this AFC West. If they could pull this out tomorrow, this will be a major step forward to doing that. The reason why they also do have a chance, I'm not in love with this defense for the Kansas City Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes showed you last week that he still got it, throwing 5 touchdowns. I think this is kind of a shootout kind of game, but I'm going to take the Chargers to win 34-27 tomorrow. I think home field's a big deal in this game. I mean, it's very tough for a road team to go in there. Now, of course, we saw the Bengals doing it in the playoffs last year, but I think it's very difficult for a road team to go into Arrowhead and get a W. Again, Herbert has that ability that he could do it. I don't see it here. I'm going to take the Chiefs to win and cover tomorrow.
Now we continue our rapid fire quick pick segment. Next game, Johnny, Dolphins at Ravens. Who do you have in this one and why?
Oof, I tell you, this would be a nice statement to see the Dolphins go in there and do that. The Dolphins are the kind of team, they have the kind of setup where Tua does not have to throw the ball 30 times a game, given their multiple running backs. But I think the Ravens their home opener here, I think this game could be kind of close, but I'm going to take the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Baltimore Ravens have a really good team this year, and they're going to compete for an AFC North crown. I think their home opener with, Lamar Jackson, fully healthy, ready to go, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. I'm going to agree with you here, but I do think the Dolphins will cover that spread and keep the game within 3 points. I think it is going to be that close. Mike McDaniel is going to have a lot of good play calls. They just lost Kyle Fuller, the Ravens, who's out for the season. So Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle will be able to make some plays, but I trust the Ravens enough to get the job done. So I'm going to roll with Baltimore in this one.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Bucks. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I put that banner there, but yeah, we got the Bucks and the Saints, Johnny. Who do you have in this one? Can Brady break the streak of losing in New Orleans?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. This game is in New Orleans. You worry about the thing now with the Bucks. I mean, what looked like was a strength is now starting to be concerning. That's that offensive line. That's something to watch. Godwin, we don't his status for Sunday, but it's a tough call. See, this is a game where if I had Sean Payton on the sideline for the Saints, I'd roll with them because I think they're kind of that wild card team. This could be that situation where the two, like we said, the two teams split. So would it surprise me if the Saints get it done? No. I do think Tampa sneaks it out, though.
I think the injury issues to Chris Godwin and Julio Jones are very, very concerning. And the fact that the Saints played the Falcons very, very close last week concerns me as well.
Yeah.
When in doubt, I just go with Tom Brady because usually he gets it done. And I think he's due to win a game in New Orleans as a Bucs quarterback. So not to be boring, but I do agree with you again here, Johnny, that Tampa Bay will squeak one out, but it will be close.
Yeah.
Next up, another game I did not include on the list, Panthers at Giants. And Johnny, I'll leave this one to you because I'm going to reveal mine tomorrow night. But Who do you have for Carolina at the Giants?
Well, the key is to me is what Baker Mayfield am I getting? Am I going to get the one that can not make a mistake? Can he get it? Tim McCaffrey have a big game? I know they've got some guys. They got Anderson. They've got some options there on offense. But I tell you, I have a feeling that the Giants it's their home opener. I just have a feeling that they have a way to sneak this one out. I mean, that number, I think the Giants are favored by 2.5. I could see this coming down to a real close late game, but I know it's going to sound crazy. I think the Giants actually have a chance to pull this out. They did this last year. I know the teams are a little bit different, but at the same time, also, if you have to make a choice, who do you trust? I trust Brian. Give me the better coach. Give me Brian Dable and the New York Giants at home to win a good one.
I think coaching will definitely play a factor here. You'll find out my pick tomorrow night, folks, on Big Blue Avenue at 7 p.m., just to build the suspense there just a little bit. Next up, Patriots at Steelers. This is an interesting game. I don't know what the situation is with Mac Jones. Johnny, do you have any update on that?
No ruling on him yet. But Tom, I am not a fan of the New England Patriots for this year. Yeah, we've come a long way from Tom Brady versus Ben Roethlisberger. This is maybe Mac Jones against Mitchell Trubisky. But I tell you, Steelers to me, they're kind of a sneaky team in all this. But I am not in love with the Patriots. I'm taking the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I agree. For me, it's more about the Patriots being bad than the Steelers being good. This will not be a good year for the Patriots. First off, you have Matt Patricia calling plays, who's their former defensive coordinator, and you have Joe Judge there, who's also running things on the offense. So I don't think that's a good recipe for success. I'm rolling with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Trubisky is a quarterback that he's not a game changer, but he won't lose you many games, right? So I think Trubisky and the Pittsburgh Steelers are the safe bet here, even with Najee Harris a little banged up, who is likely to play, and TJ Watt being out. I do think the Steelers have enough firepower on defense to make up for it. But never count out Big Bill, just saying.
That's right. And it looks like Mac Jones is going to play on Sunday. But even still, I'm not worried about Mac Jones. I'm worried about that whole other team around him. I'm taking the Steelers.
Bengals at the Cowboys. Cooper Rush starting at QB for Dallas at home. That's not going to make many fans happy. Joe Burrow coming off a 5-turnover game, heading into Jerry World. Who do you have?
I tell you, I expect Joe Burrow to bounce back in a big way. I think this is a good spot for him to do that. Now, if you're looking for the Cowboys to cover this, the big key is going to be their ground game. You got to get Zeke going. You got to keep the ball out of Burrow's hands because he's going to want to bounce back here. But I don't think the Cowboys have much to offer at all. It's a high number to lay with on the road with Cincinnati, but if I was a betting person, I'd do it. I'm taking the Bengals to win and cover.
I like the Bengals as well, even though with T. Higgins' status in doubt. I like Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd as 1 and 2 if Higgins doesn't play. And I also like Hayden Hurst at tight end. I think they'll be explosive players. Micah Parsons can't do it all. Dallas's cornerback number 2 situation is awful. And the fact that their offensive line is banged up, who's going to stop this insane pass rush featuring Trey Hendrickson and B.J. Hill? So I don't know. Cincy.
Bengals are favored by 7.5, by the way, in that game.
Yeah, it seems like a little much to be on the road, but again, there's no Dak. The offensive line is in shambles, and they're in trouble. They are in trouble.
The only way you could see that is if Cincinnati's offensive line struggles like it did last week, but I think they'll find a way to turn it around.
For sure. Next up, we have the 0-1 Tennessee Titans at the 1-0 Buffalo Bills, who just obliterated the LA Rams. And Buffalo, a team that, quite frankly, has a loaded roster on both sides of the football this year. In fact, I think they're the most complete team in the NFL, and rightfully so. They should be favorites to win the Super Bowl. Not saying they'll get there, but I do think right now they are the front runners with their Week 1 performance. They are favored by 10 the last I checked. I don't know if that's changed, but Johnny, who do you have?
Yes, the Bills are favored by 10. This is going to be ugly. Titans may only get to 10 points against themselves. I think we're looking like the same thing as last week. I think we're looking at like 31, 38, 10. Give me the Bills to win easily. Titans just don't have that ability to even score that many points. I think they're going to be one of the worst offensive teams in football this year. And I don't think they win the AFC South. That's not a strong division, but I am not in love with Tennessee, and I am totally in love with Buffalo. Give me Buffalo minus 10. I would take Buffalo minus 20 if I had a chance to.
Yeah, I think Buffalo wins by 2 touchdowns easily. Josh Allen is that man. In my opinion, he should be the favorite to win MVP after Week 1. Still a long season, but it's nice to make these bold takes now and decide if you're right or not later. I also think James Cook will be more involved. He had 1 touch last week. He fumbled. Not a good look, but I think they have a lot of weapons. Look for them to get Dawson Knox involved. Look for them to get Gabe Davis involved. Great offensive play, Buffalo. Last game we have on the sheet here is the Vikings at the Eagles. This is the second game of Monday Night Football. Kirk Cousins really struggles in prime time, and the Eagles with their home opener. Johnny, who do you have in this one?
Oh, it's so tough. I would like to think this is a different Kirk Cousins team. I wasn't in love with how the Eagles played on defense, but I tell you, the way the Eagles defense was last week, I'll tell you, I would not be surprised. I think the Vikings find a way to pull this one out. I think, if you're going to make a bold statement here in that end of, like they made their bold statement on Sunday, go out and make another bold one on Monday. I would actually take the Vikings to what am I getting? I'm getting 2. I'd like to get that to over 3, but I'm going to take the Vikings in kind of an upset special here on Monday night.
I'm really surprised that we have now made all of the same picks for all of the games we had, which is very boring. But
that's all right. We're sharing a brain.
I also have the Vikings. Johnny and I read each other's notes this morning, or study guide, I should say, before we went live on air. The Minnesota Vikings will improve to 2-0. Kirk Cousins will break that curse because of who his head coach is. I think the Vikings defense will slaughter Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to have a lot of issues throwing the ball downfield. You have a vet in Patrick Peterson. Cam Dantzler is no slouch either. And I love the draft picks of Booth and Seen alongside Harrison Smith on that back end. They have the secondary to match with Philadelphia. And that's insane because last year Minnesota's defense was bottom of the barrel. And now, complete 180. They've been outstanding. I have the Vikings by a field goal.
It's funny. If you look at this week, the 2 best games arguably are the first game tomorrow night and then Vikings Eagles to close out on Monday Night Football. I mean, other than that, I mean, you've got a lot of big lines already in week 2, which just goes to show you what they think about some of these matchups. But yeah, those two, the first game and the last game of week 2, look to be the best 2 games of the weekend.
Absolutely. And now our last topic for the NFL, that is this week, your lock and your upset of the week.
Ooh, my lock. Well, I mean, I gave it to you in the pick segment. I love Buffalo getting laying 10 against Tennessee. Again, I'm not in love with Tennessee at all. You saw the adjustments the Giants made in the second half. I mean, Tennessee could have gone off for 30 points against the Giants, but to me, they just don't have the talent to score. Their offensive line's in shambles. I think it's a terrible matchup when you go up against Von Miller and Buffalo. So to me, I love the Bills laying 10. And an upset here, let's just take a look at this real quick. I mean, I could also give you the Rams over the Falcons as an upset. As a lock. My upset of the week, I tell you what, I see if Mike White was playing, I could tell you the Jets. I mean, they're getting 6.5 against the Browns, but it's Joe Flacco starting, so I'm going to kind of stay away from that. My upset, though, you heard it there, Minnesota over Philadelphia, the Vikings over the Eagles. It's not really that major of an upset, but Minnesota's getting 2 in Philadelphia, and I like them a lot. Again, you got to make a bold statement in the NFC North. Go out there and win this one as well. So that'll be my lock. Will be Buffalo laying 10, and my upset's going to be Minnesota getting 2 in Philadelphia.
Good picks, very good picks. My lock is the Rams over the Falcons. Again, I think the Rams still could be the best team in the NFC despite their performance in week 1. Plus, they're going to be angry. They're not happy. They're going to have a lot of rest to go up against these Atlanta Falcons, and they'll be more prepared. They'll watch the film and see what the Saints did wrong, and they'll be able to, fix their defense a little bit heading into this Atlanta game. Plus, Atlanta, outside of Kyle Pitts, really doesn't have much offensively. You can argue Drake London, but he's still developing. Not much cooking there for Atlanta. So my lock is the LA Rams over the Atlanta Falcons. To be a little different from Johnny, I think that this is going to stink because I really like this team and I really like their coach. But I think Washington finds a way to get out of Detroit victorious. I do. I don't know what the line is on that game, but I'm pretty sure Detroit is favored at home, especially after their performance against Philadelphia last week.
I have it for you right here, Tom. Detroit's favored by 1.5.
Yeah, so give me Washington. Carson Wentz looked really good last week, 4 touchdown passes. And you have to look at what Washington has on offense. You have Terry McLaurin. You have Jahan Dotson, the rookie. You have Curtis Samuel, who didn't play last year. You also have Staples and a tight end and running back in Antonio Gibson and Logan Thomas. That's a lot of weapons for Carson Wentz to throw to offensively. We saw what Detroit's defense allowed against Philadelphia last week. Washington is not too far behind in offensive weapons. The question is, can Washington's defense be what it was in 2020? Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen in that regard. But again, I could see Detroit playing from behind here and struggling to come back. So I'm going to go with Washington over the Lions.
And I'll give you 2, maybe not teams that won't win, but I think will cover that. The lines are a little bit inflated. I think the Jets getting 6.5 in Cleveland. I think they can cover that. I don't know if your Cleveland can be favored by 6.5 against anybody. Even if you look at that game against Carolina, which it looked like they dominated, and they still almost lost that game. Again, it took a 58-yard field goal. And the other one, what I think is a little bit high, and again, this might be an overreaction to week 1, and that's the 49ers. They're laying 8.5 at home against Seattle. I don't know with Trey Lance, really, if he can be the answer. And, favored by 8.5, I would not be surprised if Seattle finds a way, even if it's a backdoor cover, to cover that number. Now, that number's come down a bit. It opened up at 10, and now it's down to, depending on your site, the one that I always look at for my show, and again, I don't bet, we just do this for fun, folks, is that Seattle is getting 8.5 points in San Francisco. I think they could find a way to get a backdoor cover. I'm not saying they're going to go out there and upset the 49ers like they did with the Broncos, but I think they could at least make that game kind of close because I don't know what Trey Lance is really going to be. That's the thing. It's still, you're still questioning him.
That you are. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in that game. I do think it has upset potential yet again because Lance will be without his top running back in Elijah Mitchell.
Elijah Mitchell, yeah, he's out 2 months. Yep.
So, moving on to college football, Johnny and I have more than just our Giants fandom in common. We also have our Notre Dame fandom in common. When it comes to Notre Dame football, this number does not look awfully familiar. The Notre Dame Fighting Irish are 0-2 for the first time in some time. Disgusting performance on Saturday against Marshall, losing 26-21. Tommy, who's the problem? Is it Marcus Freeman? Is it Tommy Rees? Is it Tyler Buchner, who is out for the season now? Hope he recovers from that shoulder injury. What's going on in South Bend?
I tell you what, you know what? It's such a tale of 2 weeks with Notre Dame because even though they didn't win against Ohio State, I think you had to come out of that game saying that, you know what, they did their job. They were in that game for about 95% of it. And you're like, all right, now you know what you do. You go out there and run out the season and win out the rest of the way, and they get into the playoff. Well, now it's like, forget about it. Now you don't know what bowl game you're going to be making.
New Year's 6 potentially.
No, I mean, I don't even know if you can make that now with how this has been. I mean, you take out of these 2 weeks and look who they still have to play later on in the season. They got Clemson, they got UNC, which is not a gimme. They got USC. It's tough. Maybe the problem is, Tom, maybe we ourselves maybe overreacted, and we know that they had to go through a transition, and maybe they have to do this earlier than expected. That might be what it is. And now, you're starting quarterbacks out for the season. This might be the year where they just have to make that full transition that was coming down the line, and now it's just got to start this year.
Well, I do think it didn't help that they didn't name a starter until very late in the offseason. I do think Drew Pine is a better quarterback than Tyler Buchner, in my opinion, so I'm happy that he's starting because I saw Buchner last year. He's more of a runner than a passer. He plays scared, and Pine has a little bit more experience. Michael Mayer is the one player this year that's going to keep this offense together. He is the number one target. I don't think it helped that they lost Avery Davis to a season-ending injury. It doesn't help that Freeman is a rookie at the head coaching position. Tommy Rees needs to be better. He held himself accountable. The defense needs to be better too. They gave up 219 rushing yards to Marshall.
Yeah. And let's also be honest, Tom. That final score on Saturday is so misleading. I mean, it was much worse than 26-21. I mean, I was out at a friend's end of summer pool party, and we were following this game. It was 20. I mean, it was not even that close.
I'm glad I was working during it and missed it.
I couldn't believe that. I chat with friends down here in South Carolina. I mean, I'm in the minority of being a Notre Dame fan, but then again, I come from a place where college football is not that popular, so it's we're a little bit different. But yeah, no, this was as I would say as embarrassing and as low moment for Notre Dame as in quite some time. Because yes, you know what, and Brian Kelly somewhere is laughing because you know what, yeah, he would have been embarrassed. He would have had a big time loss at Ohio State, but he also would not have lost this game. So I don't know if I necessarily put that on Marcus Freeman or if I just put that on the fact that this is now has to be a transitional year.
Freeman's young, and it is a transitional year. And I do think if Kelly was coaching this game, Notre Dame doesn't lose it for sure.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion. We could bash him all we want.
But the thing is, Brian Kelly would have been the kind of game where they would have lost to Ohio State 52-24. So you kind of have to pick your poison there. But then again, you can't lose to. I don't care who's coaching. You can't lose to Marshall at home in your home opener. I don't care what the situation is. But give Marshall credit. Give the Sun Belt credit. They had a great week last week.
They did. And I think, now Notre Dame heads into the game against California with Drew Pine starting. And the reason why, Johnny, I still think a New Year's Six bowl is possible because of what you said. Who's still on the schedule? UNC, BYU, Clemson, USC. 3 of those 4 teams I just listed are top 12 teams in the nation as of today. And if Notre Dame wins out and wins those 3 games, which could be possible, who knows? I don't
Yep.
think they will. They could certainly make a New Year's Six bowl, even with the loss to Marshall. If they win out and beat these teams convincingly, like USC, who they haven't lost to in forever, BYU, and I think that game is at home, and then the Clemson game is at home as well.
Yeah, and I think the Clemson game actually they have a chance at because I'm not really sold on DJ
Yeah.
over there at Clemson. I mean,
No,
he's had,
Ukulele, you pronounce his name?
yeah. I don't know how great he really is. He was struggling. If you remember that first game of the season, even though they won big against Georgia Tech, he struggled a lot in that
He
game.
did.
So, it's tough because the ACC is not a strong conference.
Yep.
So it's tough. You see who they're playing, and it's kind of misleading. I mean, I would not be surprised Notre Dame makes it a game there. But that's the thing too, and that's just what everybody had to understand. That's why I'm kind of bummed today, still, Tom, because Notre Dame actually had the schedule where, if you lose against Ohio State, who's probably going to win the Big Ten this year, if you play them tough for 95% and you run out the stretch, you actually have very quality wins and a quality schedule and quality outcomes. You could have definitely gotten in.
You could have.
Because so
it's tough because I don't think Freeman is a bad coach. I just think he's a young coach. And Notre Dame panicked once Kelly left because he did the typical Irish goodbye.
Yes.
He left
That's what Hank
and
says.
he left. So that meant, oh shit, what is Jack Swarbrick going to do? Right. And now you hear, they're trying to keep fans in attendance here. They're trying to keep their recruits at this point. They're playing to keep their recruits. They just got CJ Carr to commit, 5-star QB. You don't want to lose that guy. You have to keep playing to win. You always play to win the game, in my opinion. And they're bringing in Manti Te'o, who will be in attendance on Saturday, which if you didn't watch that documentary yet, go check it out. It's amazing. But yeah, that's how I feel. Notre Dame, I think they're finishing 8-4, 9-3, but I want them to be 10-2. So that's how I feel.
And look, it wouldn't be surprising if they could do that because they are that kind of team that can swing you back in.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marcus Freeman was dealt a very, very tough spot. That's for sure. And yeah, you said it. You have to play to keep your recruits and your players because the thing that's changed college football and college sports now for the landscape forever is the transfer portal.
And that, yep. And then they already lost Keelan Keeley, who was who was at the Florida game in attendance last week against Kentucky. So that stinks. But last topic of the evening, Johnny, and I know you're very passionate about baseball, as am I. I told you the Mets are going to collapse. And
gosh,
they're down,
I'm seeing it right now.
It's going to stay half a game. But the MLB rule changes taking into effect in the year 2023. Pitch clock and the banning of certain defensive shifts. I don't know. Is it defensive shifts entirely, or is it certain formations?
The banning of the quote unquote the shift, and they're telling you that they're saying you have to have 2 players on each side of the base, and they have to be on the dirt. So, if you want to take these one by one, number one, the pitch clock. That was inevitable. I have no problem with that. So I've taken in a couple of minor league games down here in South Carolina. I go to the Myrtle Beach Pelican Stadium, which I don't know when you were down here if you saw it, but it's like 15 minutes away from where I live. It's the low A affiliate of the Chicago Cubs. So I've seen the pitch clock used in there. It's fine. Sometimes you don't even notice it. I mean, yes, it's out there in like short right field. You see the clock there, but if you're watching the game, you don't notice it. These guys, they're getting the ball and they're throwing it right back out there. Pitch clock, I have no problem with.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the pitch clock is an issue, but I think, again, it's like telling an NFL defense you can't play this type of scheme or formation defensively.
Oh, well, you want to talk about the shift?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a whole nother story, and I totally agree with you. I can't stand this. And I'm going to probably go through the rest of my voice here tonight to talk about this, but I cannot stand the banning of the shift. First of all, like you said, you don't see this in basketball, you don't see this in football, you don't see this in hockey. You're telling a team that you have to play defense a certain way. It should if there's a team that wants to play a 3-man, 3 guys on the left side or the right side of the infield, that should be their prerogative. If they want to take an infielder and put him in short right field, That should be their prerogative, and it should be on the hitter to learn to bunt and go the other way. Because what is the number one rule for a baseball player? What is your number one goal or job?
To get on base.
To get on base, exactly. So you know what? I don't need to be seeing Joey Gallo bitch and moan about, oh, I can't get on because I got 3-4 guys on the right side of the infield and they're in short right field. Oh, Joey, go the other way, and you know what they'll do? They will manually ban the shift against you if you guys are always going the other way. But instead, because of analytics and stuff, these guys are being taught to hit 490-foot home runs when they're down 4-0. Look at 4-5-0. Like Pete Alonso last night in the Met game. The Mets are down 4-0. He's hitting one deep into the second deck in left field last night in the 9th inning. What does that do? It's a solo home run. Doesn't do anything. So yeah, the shift. I can't stand this. It gets me so aggravated because you should be allowed to play any defensive style you want.
The game is lost. I mean, they keep playing with the game. It's. I hate to say it. It's done. It's
the damage to this sport from the lockout, and I would even go back to 2020 with COVID. This sport has suffered so much damage between the two lockouts, and I'm even saying 2020 was lockout, even though it was COVID. But those last two instances, and the crazy thing was, and this is what I told people, the damage to the sport's done. The worst of it has not even hit yet. It's coming next year with all these rule changes. The pickoff amounts that you could do. They should be allowed to throw over as many times as they want. And yeah, it gets boring, and yeah, it kind of stinks. But you know what? You should not be telling somebody, oh, you're only allowed to do it twice, and then the third time it's a balk. I mean, come on. What are we doing? The larger bases. Originally, when they were talking about the larger bases, I thought it was because the umpiring's been so bad that they were trying to do that.
Yeah, as ERAs are going to plummet, batting averages are going to skyrocket. It's not good, right? I mean, Joey Gallo will be hitting like 300 next year if this is actually. I'm exaggerating, of course.
Yeah,
it's terrible. It's terrible, and I only went to 2 Mets games this year so far. I don't even know if I want to go to another one because not just of the MLB rule change, just how bad they are. I mean. Hell, Eduardo Escobar is a 240 hitter on a good day. This banning of the shift could make him a 280 hitter very easily next season. So, I have no interest in this stuff, right? Baseball's already boring enough for your average person to watch, right? It's only the diehards that really sit there and watch it, that go to the games. People will go to a game for fun, but are they really paying attention to the game? No, they're there to socialize. They're there to do their own thing. They don't care about what's going on in the game. And it's sad. It is really sad. And the fact that you can't fill – I mean, I don't know what this is going to do with the Mets. I mean, it's embarrassing. When you go there, the Hall of Fame room is half empty. And every single year, it's the same shit. So why am I, as a Mets fan, especially now with these rule changes coming, why am I going to invest my money in the MLB? Why? What reason?
And all these rule changes don't fix what's wrong with baseball, with one of the many problems with baseball today, and that's the philosophy. The fact that the launch angle, the fact that they always are at 2 strikes before they swing, and they're always chasing pitches, they're always trying to swing for the fences. You could do as many rule changes as you want, and you're still not solving the many problems that the baseball has.
Yeah.
I mean, it is awful. I mean, it is so bad. I don't even like the expanded playoffs that are starting this year. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, you're going to be playing games into the middle of November. It's terrible. I mean, I love coming on and talking baseball with you and doing my show and everything else, but watching the game seems to be a whole other story now.
I'll be honest, and this is probably something I should say off air and not on air. I don't talk baseball and review and preview anymore. There's no reason to. I have Hank to do it. There's no reason for me to talk about it. Yeah, it is a fantastic show. Now removing it Tuesday nights at 8:30 for the rest of the season, because Big Blue Avenue is back. But Johnny, now that we've pretty much exhausted that topic, anything else you'd like to bring up? Any memories that you may have forgotten of before, or anything in general that resonates with tonight's show?
Well, I have to say, when we were going back and looking at memories, one of my favorite shows was when I first moved down here to South Carolina, and it actually was right around, I think it was we were heading towards the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Falcons, when you started showing on Facebook Live, and it looked like you had a cast of thousands co-hosting the show. You had like 5 or 6 people in the studio. I was like, oh, I didn't realize it took like 4 or 5 people to replace me. But yeah, just to have so many people. No, this is a lot of fun. You know, one of the great things that this show does is it makes you forget about everything that's going on in the world, and you go out and you come out here and you have fun for a few hours, and that's what sports does. And you know, to have started this 11 years ago and to see what it's done, I mean, I could not have predicted it was going to be like this. I would never have predicted to you when I started that I was going to be down here in South Carolina, but I'm enjoying doing this, and I'm going to be enjoying for this next little while, coming on with you every couple of weeks and co-hosting. And yeah, you know what, the sports world, as I say, Tom, it's just, in some ways, we are just getting started, and I'm so excited, and congratulations to you and to everybody on all the shows for sure. And Big Blue Avenue, I have to say this, and I don't say this just because I'm a Giants fan, and not just because I know you, Hank and Sam, but it is the best Giants show that's out there. I mean, I really do say that. Yeah, no, it really is, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to hopefully a great year of Giants football and another great year here at R&P for sure.
Johnny, thank you so much for your hospitality coming on tonight. Everything that, you know, you've done over the last 11 years, whether it's been active with the brand or down in South Carolina, you know, you've been a contributor, and you'll always be a member of Review and Preview. And, you know, I'm excited to have you back on during football season. So kind of back now as a part-time member, you know?
I love it. Absolutely. And you know what? And Tommy, I'll say this, it's going to go by fast. I mean, before you know it, next time I come on, it'll be week 3, and then it'll be 5 or whatever it'll be. I mean, the football season, it goes by quicker and quicker every year.
Yeah.
So let's take it and enjoy it. That's why I'm saying enjoy our 1-0 Giants. Tomorrow we start turning the page and looking forward to Carolina. And hopefully this will be the start of maybe a relevant special year for us for sure.
Folks, on behalf of Johnny Montalbano, just want to say thank you all. Remember to check us out on all of our social media platforms if you haven't already. Hit the like button on Facebook to subscribe to our Facebook page. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Our audio podcasts are up on the Anchor, consisting of all our shows, and our YouTube channel, and our TikTok at Review and Preview. I forgot to plug that before, but we have Hank and Fonz posting some fun videos, Sam sometimes as well. And since the start of this show, and pretty much since going virtual, we're now up to 13 members, and we have 6 to 7 shows. And I'm proud to say that this show has now turned into a brand. And, you know, absolutely, Johnny, without you, none of this is possible. So
I appreciate that, Tom, and congratulations to you and everybody here at the Review and Preview Network. And here's to many, many more years.
Absolutely. Folks, on behalf of Johnny Montalbano, I'm Tom Scavetta saying so long. You've been watching Review and Preview here on YouTube and Facebook Live. Have a good night.